Welcome back to another episode of the Full Tank Truck Talk here on the Full Tank with Phil YouTube channel. Welcome in. If it's the first time you found us, happy to have you here. I am Phil Eastman of the Full Tank with Phil podcast, where we talk about Cup Series action every single week, but the Cup Series is off this week. So we have a very rare and special situation here in the NASCAR world where we've got trucks and Xfinity stand alone this weekend, Easter weekend, going back to a racetrack that hasn't been touched by NASCAR in a very long time. We're going to Rockingham. Yes, that's right. Rockingham Speedway. It's been a long time since they've been there. I believe it's like 2012, 2013 since we've seen the trucks there. Cup Series action's been there a long time ago, going all the way back into the early 2000s. So it's been quite a long time, and it's going to be tough episode here to try to handicap some of these picks, but we're going to do our best. And so just to give you the rundown of the show, we're going to start with the race recap. It's going to be very quick, going back to what we saw last week at Bristol in the Truck Series, and then going to give a breakdown of everything that we have coming up here at Rockingham. Just any information I can give you about what this racetrack's about, things to try to help us predict who's going to do well and who's not. And then we'll get into our outrights. I got one outright to talk about because of the board being, so lopsided with Corey Heim. We've got one placement pick, one driver, I guess, a couple placement picks to discuss, and then three matchups. And then in the finish line section, I kind of just riff, right? Last week in the finish line section, I riffed on Chandler Smith a little bit, and worked out. So that's what we got going up here in this episode. So we'll talk about that race that Chandler Smith came away with at Bristol. Now, we missed this one. The only bets we hit from the episode last week were our head-to-heads. We went 2-2, 2-4-2 in the head-to-head section. We remain hot with the head-to-head matchups on a week-to-week basis. So that's why we have three this week, kind of pulling back a little bit on the outrights and placements and just kind of focusing on the head-to-heads. But I really thought Kyle Larson was going to jump out there, dog walk the field. He did that in Xfinity and Cup Series, so just misses the sweep for the trucks. And you saw in his post-race interview or weekend interview with Kevin Harvick talking about how he wants to dominate the Xfinity Series. He wasn't as rough on the Truck Series guys, but it's because he didn't get the job done. Chandler Smith goes out and gets it done. So I talked up Kyle Larson. I fully expected him to do it, but he did not. It was Chandler getting it done. Now, outside of that, we had Riggs for a little bit of a longer shot, another option. He was frisky. He was there. He was fighting, but couldn't come through. But we did have Ankrum over Honeycutt. Stay tuned for that because we were going to run that one back, I think. A little spoiler alert there. And then we also had Rajah Caruth over Brandon Jones, and that one was cashed early as Jones ran into trouble. So 2 for 2 in that area. And we had Hemrick, I believe, for a top 5 at a decent clip. It was like plus 250. He started on the pole, so I felt really good about that. That number was nuked because of that on when the green flag flew, but he finishes 13th, just couldn't get it done for us. So, it's the head-to-heads that remain solid for us here in the Truck Series week to week. So let's talk about what we're getting into now with Rockingham. Because we haven't been there in so long, it's really difficult to try to handicap this sort of race, right? Because what do we have to go off of? Not much. The last truck race was 2013. This is a short track. They're calling it a short track. It's a mile 0.015, I think. So just over a mile, a smidge. The turns are 23 to 25 degrees and the straights are 8 degrees. So it's a D-shaped asphalt racetrack. Now we'll get into what you would consider comps. There's not really anything, but they just repaved this track, and that is going to bring some different elements, right? If you are a historian of NASCAR or you're an old school fan and you're excited about what Rockingham is going to bring to the table, you might want to temper your expectations because this is the new Rockingham, the new pave. My favorite driver of all time, Casey Kane. He is coming back to race in the Xfinity Series. He accepted the ride from RCR, and this isn't an Xfinity Series podcast. We'll talk about Casey at the end, but he accepted the ride and didn't realize they repaved it. So that's the kind of stuff we're getting into here with like, oh man, it's a repave. That is quite a hit to the gut. If you were somebody like Casey Kane jumping in, thinking it was the old Rockingham where you did really well. So if you were a gambler back in the day that did really well, yeah, it's new pavement. So what we could potentially see is racing similar to what we saw last week at Bristol, where it's, I'll call it boring a little bit, but track position is going to matter. And what we know is it's going to be very fast. So we'll talk about the test. The test is, we're really clinging to that this week, the test they ran in late January. And the numbers that we showed there were just seconds faster than the all-time record for fastest lap previously. So we got a lot to really pull from here. Not a lot to pull from, but a lot of data as far as speed going to be a factor here in this race from that test. The repave is definitely going to do that for us here. Now, this is a quick weekend. The qualifying and practice, we get an hour-long practice. That's a lot. It's a lot of data we could pull from, which is great, right? But we're not sure what the odds are going to be like when they come back up. Are they even going to put the odds back up? The race itself is Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. That is a quick turnaround. We have early morning practice in like 11:30 time slot, then qualifying right after. Still similar time gap, but I'm just crossing my fingers that we're able to look at the practice results, look at qualifying, and then make some picks after. So reserve some of your units, hopefully, for some outright plays or some, placement plays if the books bring them back up after practice and qualifying. Now, if we're looking at data, like I said, not really anything to pull from. Zero track history to pull from here. The test, we're going to talk about who was fast, who wasn't, as a way to kind of start a conversation around a bet. But I think what matters most is just current form, how these guys are going this season, right? And trying to say, all right, these guys just have it. These guys have certain factors each week, very consistent. We're looking for the consistent drivers that it doesn't matter what kind of track you throw at them, they're doing well. Now, talking with our buddy Ryan Stevens from Win the Race on our draft show every Wednesday night. He has, his rankings out there, and I was kind of throwing some things by him this morning, like, hey, I'm thinking Darlington is kind of a comp track because of the way the racetrack is structured, right? Darlington is 1.3 miles, similar bankings on the fronts or the straights and the turns. It's high tire wear though, so it's not like 100% comp. So there's not really anything that, even though that structure of the racetrack is similar, nothing really matches up. He was saying he's mixing in a little bit of Darlington, a little bit of Vegas, a little bit of Charlotte, Kansas, Bristol, just because we saw it last week, just a smidge of that. So, and then Dover, I think you'd probably say that Dover is a decent comparison, but we haven't seen Dover races in Truck Series since 2020. So it's like, throw that out, because most of these guys, weren't even close to being in this series yet when the last time they're at Dover. So it's tough, right? Tough to pull from. I'm mashed up two races from all of those tracks except for Dover. I only did one Bristol from just last week, just to give me some sort of baseline as to who would be good here. We're getting like the short track treatment from the books just based on who they're thinking is going to be, good and where the lines are. But really what it comes down to is Corey Heim is the man. I mean, it doesn't matter any way you slice it. Corey Heim, the books have him at plus 150. And I think that's the best number I saw on him going into practice and qualifying. It's just too short, right? For example, that data set that I gave you of all those tracks, Corey Heim is an absolute monster. He's a monster. And so that's what makes it 7 top fives in those 9 races. That's just crazy. So it makes all the sense in the world that the sportsbook would put him at the top of the board. I cannot touch him. I can't have fun betting that, right? Last week, we tried to do a little something similar to that with Kyle Larson. Didn't work out. It didn't. Even though Kyle's dominant at Bristol, it did not work out. So Corey could very well go out and win the race. Would not be shocked, but I'm not going to be talking about him on this episode just because it's just too short. I think there's other ways we can maybe have a little fun and meaningful bet placements here. So that's where we're going with that. So let's get into it here with the first outright pick that I have. And let's see, where is he? Where is he? Did I lose him? I gotta put a banner in here for my guy. Okay. I don't have a banner up just yet. Sorry for this, but I'm going Ty Majeski at 6-1. Okay. So if it's not going to be Corey Heim, then who's it going to be? Well, Ty Majeski, I think, is a decent spot here at 6-1. You can see that on Bovada. I'm going to throw Bovada out here. Now, if you don't have that book, it's an offshore book. There are other spots out there that you can get 6-1. I think ESPN was another one. So more readily available sports books. 6-1 for Majeski. Let's talk about it. Testing in January at Rockingham. He was extremely fast in an extremely fast test session. Okay. But you look at what he did in that testing session, and he absolutely was head and shoulders better than everyone else. Over 0.3 of a second better than second place, 0.4 of a second better than third place. And then they're all mashed together from 4th to like 13th. And then it gets, stretched out a little bit. Majeski was the cream of the crop in that testing session. So you look and see, all right, well, newer track, right? What's another example of a newer racetrack that we've seen recently? Well, North Wilkes-Barre comes to mind. It's not a comp. It's a short track, but it's flat. It's not a comp in the structure, but it was a new racetrack, newly paved, like this one on the circuit. And Kyle Larson went out and won that one easily. Well, who came in second place? It was Ty Majeski in a field of a lot of Cup drivers and Xfinity drivers dipping down. So that's another feather in the cap here for Ty Majeski. But the fact that he went out and had such a big gap in that testing session means, quite a bit to me. You look at his average starting position this season, 6.8 is his average starting position in 2025. That is first in all of the Truck Series this season. So all of this combined now, the fact that he has shown experience doing well on a new track, on a new pavement, really looking good in the testing session, and he qualifies well on a week-to-week basis in 2025. To me, this is going to be potentially setting up for a really good start, maybe a front row start, and that number drops if they reopen it. So at 6-1 now, I see a possibility that he could go out and run circles around these guys because his car was clearly that much better at this track earlier in the year. I am going to seem like I'm putting a ton of emphasis on this testing session. I really don't mean to. It's just because of lack of data that we have to pull from. Now, Majeski has had, with all these good qualifying positions, he has had a lackluster season as far as results. So it makes it a little difficult to be like, Majeski, absolutely top 3 bets, top 5 bets, because he's not doing that consistently. But what we're saying here is more of like a checkers and wreckers situation. I don't want to miss out from the information that I just laid out there on him running wild on the field. If he does that, like we saw, I think it was like Richmond a couple years ago, where he was just blowing circles around everybody. I don't want to miss out on that on Friday afternoon if that were to happen. So Majeski, if you're looking for somebody other than Heim, he's where I'll steer you, and you can get that on a few different books. So moving on then to our one placement pick. And this is an interesting one because I was talking to our buddy, my former podcast partner, Derek Yoder, earlier today. We were talking through some of these bets, and I threw my placement pick his way. And he, was a little hesitant because of the news with Chandler Smith. So he goes out, wins Bristol. Great stuff, right? You think all this momentum, and then a ton of stuff in his personal life comes out, and a lot of stuff with his divorce filings and the details around that. And it's just like, whoa, what's going on? Now, the timing of that, I was telling Derek, I think some of that dropped on Reddit before the Bristol race. So like maybe he just is able to block all that out, but we'll see if he can really block it out, because it was all the talk on like Monday and Tuesday of this week. A lot of negative energy in the social media world around this dude. So can he go get it done and separate that kind of craziness from work. We'll see. Now I'm throwing top 5 out here at minus 120. That's the best number I'm seeing on top 5. You're seeing like minus 150 other places, minus 140. The other thing is a top 3 is plus 150 on ESPN. And that also is intriguing to me. So no matter how you want to play Chandler Smith, I don't want to take him for the win. He's the same number as Majeski, but I'm thinking, a placement pick on him is going to do us really well. So let's talk about what's going on here. Obviously, we got the, momentum coming in from the win. He was 4th in the testing at Rockingham. And if you think back, right, that testing, that was pretty much the first time he was in the truck in a really long time because he was coming back down, right? He signed the deal with, Front Row, and they, as a team, performed really well in this testing session. So the fact that he was able to go wheel it to a 4th place in the testing is interesting to me, right? Because he hasn't been in the trucks to that point in a little while. And current form, he's the only driver in the Truck Series that is 6 for 6 finishing inside the top 10. You're really not going to find a more consistent driver than Chandler Smith right now. He's got 1 win and 3 top 5s. So a 3 for 6 hit rate, hitting the top 5 bet, 50%. Not too shabby, minus 120. I'm comfortable with that number. So that's where we're going. Best average finish in the Truck Series, 5.5. And that is with a brutal starting position average. 12.12 is his average starting position week to week. That's 14th best in the Truck Series. It's including some of the guys who have jumped down a couple times. But still, that is showing me that this is a driver who doesn't matter where he starts. He's able to go through the field and get the best average finish in the series. He's got the 2nd best driver rating behind Corey Heim. So if this is a track where big dogs are going to eat because of the pave, I think Chandler Smith's going to be right there. This series is shaping up to be exactly how we thought it would be with these newer guys coming in. Hemrick already with a win. Smith already with a win. Heim being Heim. This is fantastic stuff. And so Chandler Smith, I think, is, primed to be a big dog here, eating on a track that is set up for fast trucks. So Smith, whether you want to slice it for a top 5 or even take a little bit more of a risk with a good number, plus 150 for a top 3, I think he's got to be on your card this week at Rockingham. So we get through the placement picks. We're going to go to the matchups here, and we're going to go back to the well of Tyler Ankrum over Caden Honeycutt, minus 115 on Caesars. We hit this bet last week. Let's talk about the bad part first, okay? Honeycutt was way better in the test. 2nd to Ty Majeski. 2nd. Tyler Ankrum, not so much. He was finished, he ran the most laps and was 25th in testing. So what was going on there? Like, did something go wrong? Were they trying to work something out with that truck? Very strange that they ran the most laps and really couldn't do anything with it, finishing 25th in that testing. So not sure what's going on there. I'm putting a lot of emphasis on the test, obviously a couple times, but for this part, I'm going to push it aside because of what we're seeing here. Ankrum is making us money in head-to-head matchups and sneakily making money in top 5 bets. But let's just talk about the head-to-head from last week. I talked about Ankrum being consistent, and I was also talking down on Honeycutt, saying I don't really trust him. Short tracks, not really his thing. He made me sweat that bet. He finished 8th. He ran way better than I thought. I thought he was going to be out to lunch. He was not. And so Ankrum wins that, but Honeycutt definitely gives us a little bit more of a sweat. And he's starting to show a little bit more, I guess, but still has not had the season that I projected. Not off to the best starts. Head-to-head versus Ankrum. This is the thing that got me. Head-to-head versus Ankrum all season. Ankrum is 6-0 versus Honeycutt. What? Undefeated this year? Undefeated? We're running it back until we lose. We're going to ride this wave. Ride it. And so, surprisingly, Ankrum is tied with Corey Heim for the most top 5s in the Truck Series with 4 of 6 races. Could you imagine? I was saying this to Derek earlier. Could you imagine if you were just betting Ankrum top fives every week, you'd be up a bunch of units, because I don't know what the numbers would have been week to week. And of the two that he missed, one of them was at Daytona, the super speedway race. So he's just been locked in. Really good stuff here for Ankrum. His last 3 races, he finished 4th, 2nd, and 4th. So back-to-back-to-back top 5 finishes. Is Honeycutt going to finish top 5? Who knows? This track is going to be weird. But I'm willing to take, from the consistency standpoint, that Ankrum's going to be up there too. And I'll take him to win a 7th in a row head-to-head versus Honeycutt. So that's where we're at here. The other thing is Honeycutt, he just doesn't have good starting positions. 15.5 average start, 16.3 average finish. It's just like he's not consistent. So we got a very consistent driver going up against a not consistent driver. Give me Ankrum all day in this one. Minus 115. I think that should be more juice towards the 18. All right. 2 more here to get through. And I'll throw this one out here. We're going to go back to the well fading Brandon Jones. It worked out for us last week. We took Rajah Caruth. That bet was over in like the first 30 laps. It felt so good. We were like, all right, doesn't matter. I kept looking at the ticker like, is he back on the truck? No, okay, we're good. We're good. Jones just ran into some trouble there. He's started twice. He's going to be in the series for a few races now in a row in this one truck, but he's got 2 starts so far, 12th at Homestead. He's got a start at Bristol, and Bristol, he found a lot of trouble. So I'm not sure what his deal is in this one truck. If that truck just doesn't have it, if he's just not comfortable in it, I don't know what the deal is. But if he's going to be in it for a few races in a row, they better get comfortable. But he is just somebody I can't trust. It's just maybe in the Xfinity series, but in the truck series, that one truck specifically, I'm who we going up against? That's what matters. Is it someone that's kind of mid-tier, or is it someone at the top of the board? And it's Daniel Hemrick, who is a sneaky top dog in this series. Hemrick is minus 120, and I don't mind it here. He's got a 9.2 average finish. He won at Martinsville and then went right to the pole at Bristol, finished 13th. It was okay. But he's picking up the pace this season. Hemrick is doing what we really thought, starting to get a lot more comfortable in this series. And just these last 2 races of a victory and then putting on the pole right away in that McAnally 19 truck. I mean, it's one of the most coveted varsity rides in the series going up against a part-time guy. It just doesn't compute with me. So until Brandon Jones shows any sort of, scariness or life, I'm going to fade him. We hit this last week with Rajah. We're going to go back to it with another Chevy truck in Daniel Hemrick, and that's on Bovada, but that's also on a couple different books as well. I think Bovada had the best number. I saw that down to like minus 135 on ESPN, I believe. So, people are on this bet, and you should be too. So let's go to the last bet that I had here, and that is Lane Riggs over Sammy Smith. This is minus 130 on Caesars. This is more juice than anything else we've talked about tonight, but we'll start with Sammy Smith. He is the short track guy. That's what I keep hearing. I don't follow the Xfinity series very much, but he tested 9th in the Xfinity series in this test. Now, I don't know how that kind of correlates to what we're going to be doing here. He was 12th in the 7 truck in the truck series. So, he ran this test with everybody else, and it was just okay. He's going up against Lane Riggs. Oh, and it's his first start, by the way, in the series this year. He's driving that Spire truck, which has been very good, but also we've had a couple ringers come down and drive the Spire 7 or the 07 that just been okay. It's just because it's the Spire 7 or 07 doesn't mean that it's going to be lights out. Think of McDowell and Haley when they were running a few races back to back. Doesn't mean it's lights out. So I like Lane Riggs here in this matchup because I want Riggs on my card in some way, shape, or form. I didn't know really how I was going to play it. I don't want to take him for an outright again. He's a short track guy as well. He is someone that I could see winning this race. I could see him for a top 5, but I'd rather just have him beating one driver, and that driver just happens to be Sammy Smith. I haven't seen him matched up against too many other people on various sports books. This is really the matchup that they're giving us here. And in the test from January, he tested third. So, right there with his teammate, front row. I love seeing how those guys were, Chandler Smith and Lane Riggs were right together, third and fourth. That's telling you that the shop was on it, right? And he had a rough super speedway stretch with Daytona and Atlanta. But since then, he has been really starting to feel good. Look at these numbers here. Since then, he started fourth, finished second at Homestead, started seventh, finished 11th at Martinsville. That's not winning us any money unless it's a head-to-head. But still, decent start, decent enough finish. Started ninth, finished sixth at Bristol. And he just missed that top 5 bet. So, again, really starting to come into it. A little bit more consistent, or I would say, very consistent. Second, 11th, 6th, like right in that top 10 area is where we want him to be. He's going to need to be in the top 10 in order to win this matchup, I'd have to believe. Sammy Smith is no slouch. It's just kind of taking a different route to this. I think that Lane Riggs, he needs to qualify well. He knows he's going to have a fast truck. And, if he can have that qualifying effort, get that track position, I think he's going to be in really good shape versus a fresh face. Now, if Smith goes and does well, that's great. But I think that new face in this series, this season, it could be going really well. And then all of a sudden just something happens, hits a wall, like unfamiliarity. I'm saying that word terribly, but not being familiar with the truck this season compared to a guy that is fighting for making it to the championship this season. Like he's going to be a guy and he's on a really good team in Lane Riggs. I think Sammy Smith is more prone to making a mistake at some point in time that's going to knock him out of his head-to-head matchup than Lane Riggs is. So if you say that this is like, apples versus apples, I'm still going to go with the full-time guy and the guy that I've seen do well in this season, especially as of late. So Riggs minus 130. Clearly the books agree as well with this matchup. So that's the rundown here. We've got Majeski for an outright. We've got Chandler Smith replacement pick, top 5. We've got Ankrum over Honeycutt. We've got Hemrick over Jones. And then that last one there with Riggs over Sammy Smith. So the final thing that we have here is the finish line. Just have a couple different topics here. We'll try to keep it quick. I want to first mention, there's a few different head-to-heads out there. One that just threw me for a conundrum. It was Ben Rhodes versus Stuart Friesen. Man, it's crazy that these two are matched up against each other. Just commenting on the fact that Ben Rhodes has really kind of fallen down. No disrespect to our resident Canadian Stuart Friesen, but Ben Rhodes should be matched up with some of these other guys. And so, if you look at the data set that I talked about with all those comp in air quote tracks, he's third in driver rating compared to all of the full-time truck guys. So that's something. He was 7 spots better in the testing. I would lean Rhodes in this matchup just because it's like, come on, man. Like you got to be better than Stuart Friesen. You're Ben Rhodes. But both of these guys are really struggling this year. I mean, their season is almost identical from a week-to-week standpoint. So just want to throw that out there. Talk me through that, right? I mean, should we be avoiding that like the plague, or is there something to the Ben Rhodes side of that? I got another one for you, and this is the last one I'll talk about for the trucks. Hear me out. Hear me out. If you're someone that's like, dude, Phil, you talk about the same guys every week, man. It's like, well, yeah, like I kind of have to. I got something different for you this week. And I threw this out there to Derek, and his response was, some things change, some things stay the same. And this is a bet that I think I threw out there a couple of times last season. And I think one of them, it hit. Bear with me. ESPN plus 1,000 for a top 5. I'm not saying throw a full unit on this. I'm just saying I'll probably throw something on it just for fun. Jake Garcia for a top 5. Hear me out. Jake Garcia, I mean, he's 7-1 elsewhere. So ESPN giving us a little bit of a gift there. He tested 5th for whatever that's worth, right? Tested 5th. And that, I think, I'm going to pull that up here as we're talking. That was the best of. Oh no. Okay, he was second of the Thor Sport guys. Obviously, Majeski was first. So Jake Garcia, he is someone that I thought he was going to be much better. He is not, but look up and you'll see what he's been doing this year. So a good testing effort at Rockingham, but he's got 4 top 10s in his last 5 races. And that includes 1 top 5. As a matter of fact, his last 3 races, 7th place, 3rd place, 7th place. So he's hitting 1 top 5 and he's 2 spots back on both other races. He's right there on the cusp. So if you tell me you can get 10 to 1 on someone who has been consistently running in that area and he tested well at Rockingham, shit. Blind resume, I think you'd probably be like, I'll dabble. So Jake Garcia is the name. It scares you off a little bit. He could go out and run 25th, and it's like, whatever. But just for a little ice cream money, how about Jake Garcia? Last thing I'll mention, and I'm just putting this out there, I could not be more stoked that Casey Kane's running the Xfinity Series. I'm hoping he does really well so we see more of him. I have saved up money from the winnings so far this year just to throw bullshit bets on Casey. The lines are ridiculous. The sports books are giving him way too much credit. I do not think he's going to run all that well, but I'm hoping. So yeah, looking for any head-to-head. So if you see a head-to-head on with Casey Kane against somebody else, you let me know. I already have him versus Carson Quapple, but keep me in mind as the weekend goes on because I want to throw what I can down on my boy Casey Kane. I ordered the shirt. It was supposed to be here by Friday. It's not here yet. They're saying it's getting delivered by Monday. Oh, well. But yeah, hopefully good luck to him in the Xfinity Series. So that's going to do it here for another Full Tank Truck Talk episode. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Have a good Easter.